The future of work and leadership always starts with us. Welcome to the Dr. Ginny Show. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dr. Ginny Show. I am so excited today because my guest is Zoilita Grant. Let me tell you a little bit about Zoilita, and of course, we're going to hear directly from her and hear about her story. Zoilita Grant is a hypnotic business coach, a keynote speaker, and an author of Change Your Mind and Change Your Life. She empowers small business owners and teams to unlock success through mindset mastery, which is right up my alley. She asked the question, what if the key to unlocking your full potential lies not in external circumstances, but within your own mind? So as a hypnotic business coach, we're going to learn about how you got interested in this topic. So Zoilita, welcome to the Dr. Ginny Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you.
It's my pleasure. I always like to take it from the top, and I would love to hear, how did you get involved in hypnosis and what made you focus on this area of people's lives and businesses?
Well, as all experiences do, it comes from a challenge. When I was 16 years old, I weighed 265 pounds, and I'm 5'2". Today I weigh 115.
Amazing.
I lived with my grandmother in Berkeley, California, and we went to the university library and we took out all of the books on hypnosis, and I hypnotized myself to lose 150 pounds in a year.
Wow, I'm so curious about that. How do you do that?
So, first of all, I hypnotized myself to feel like my stomach was shrinking so that I would feel full faster. I hypnotized myself to notice that my stomach was more important than my taste buds. And so I focused on feeling in the stomach. And then also, I hypnotized myself through positive affirmations and visualizations to walk for an hour every day, 5 days a week.
Unbelievable. And so you are sharing the example of the power of the mind, which is what we're going to go into, because for our audience who are in leadership roles, most of us, and who are driving our teams and leading the initiatives of the future of work and transformations and adoptions of AI and technology, how we can leverage what you're going to share with us to do that in a way that supports our goals is going to be gold for us. So Zoilita, as people are listening to us, what would be the benefit for them to sit through our conversation today? What do you think will be their biggest takeaway if they pay attention to what we're going to say?
They have the most powerful computer in the world right between their ears. There are no manuals. Learning the tools and techniques of hypnotic work allows you to develop a personal manual for your own mind. 85% of your mind is subconscious, 15% is conscious. When they disagree, the subconscious always wins.
Always.
Always.
That's the programming, that's the wiring, that's running the operating system.
Absolutely.
And this is really aligned with the concept of self-leadership, which is charge of what is happening with you. How are you showing up? What are you believing? I have this slogan, we become what we believe. And so let's believe some good stuff.
Absolutely. In reality, one of the things that I teach people to do is to become the CEO of their personality. Your personality is like a committee: the judge, the rebel, the romantic, the skeptic, the believer, the child, the worrier. People can recognize this.
Yeah.
And once you start to recognize it, you begin to make conscious choices.
Right now, based on the clients you see and the people you help and the teams you support, what are you noticing? What is your top priority right now as it relates to what they're dealing with?
Teaching people how to self regulate. because you live in a world of constant stress and change. People are afraid. They're afraid of the conditions of the world, the conditions of society. But when they learn how to regulate their own nervous system, you begin to learn to master the inner game.
Do you use hypnosis for yourself when you were younger? How did you make that translation from using it on yourself to using it to support other people and teams?
One of the things that I like to teach people is that I am training you to utilize the power of your own mind. I am not doing something to you.
You're opening up what's already there that I didn't even know existed.
The door of potential. When you line up your subconscious and your conscious mind, you unleash peak performance.
Now, Zoilita, I know that the people that are listening who could be skeptical are probably wondering, how is this based on research? What can you tell us about the research that substantiates what the conversation that we're having is about?
There is actually very little research on hypnosis because of the fact it's always been identified as either being stage entertainment or woo-woo. The only research that's ever been done was by some people called the Hildegardes, who ran a institute of working with hypnosis from the 1960s to the 1990s at Stanford University. So they did a lot of research. They basically determined brainwave frequencies. They worked with the electromagnetic input of the brain. She was a psychiatrist, he was a neuroscientist. They were a husband and wife team. And their research basically showed that there's this tremendous capacity to learn hypnotic skills, like to learn how to actually visualize. Did you know that people that are taught to shoot hoops through visualization tend to shoot hoops better than people that learn through practice?
I have heard the studies where they had a control group who was only visualizing the practice and another group that was actually going to basketball practice. And at the end, they performed about the same.
Absolutely. You know, I had a really interesting experience last year when I met a man named Stuart Wilde who lives in Melbourne, Australia. And he trains Olympic athletes. And he uses the same techniques that I use to train American entrepreneurs.
Let's get into it, Zoilita. If I were to come to you and say, Zoilita, help me really get mastery of my mind and unlock the potential that I have, what is the arc that you would take me through?
The first thing that we would do is we would do some clearing of limiting beliefs.
And I know what those are. As a coach, that's one of the pathways, right? Limiting beliefs,
Limiting beliefs.
find what's holding you back, your shadow.
Yes. People use this phrase, you create your reality, but nobody ever really explains exactly how to do that. And I'd like to explain that right now.
Please do, yes.
You create your reality with two things. One is your system of beliefs, and the other is your habits of living.
So let's break that down, right? Because as a coach, I understand exactly what you're saying. Let's start with the first one, your system of beliefs. These are the foundational things that your subconscious is having you do, say, think, and act based on these.
Absolutely. Let's use the 4 minute mile as an example. For years, it was believed that no one could ever run a 4 minute mile. It was stated in encyclopedias that the human body could not run a 4 minute mile. Then someone ran a 4 minute mile, and in 18 months, a lot of other people ran a 4 minute mile.
It was coming from the belief that we could not do it. And there's also a study where they actually took a piece of paper and they put an ant on the paper and drew a circle around it. The ant will go to the edge and come back in until it actually, I forget how, it got past the line, and then that's it. You couldn't keep the ant inside the circle once you realize I can get out of the circle.
We're inside of the circle of our own limitations.
Then if that's the case, and this is also what we do with coaching, is our job, and as individuals, our job is to understand what are my limiting beliefs around my job, my team, me getting promoted, being able to serve in my community. Those are things we must question with empowering questions. What are my beliefs around this topic? Because also I've noticed, Zoilita, that depending on the subject matter, the context, whether it's relationships, finances, or whether it's your career, we have different beliefs.
The quickest way to change that system of belief, because if you change it through
Go there.
cognitive awareness, it's going to take a long time.
Tell me more about that. The cognitive awareness is your conscious mind.
Yes, where okay, I see what I believe that's keeping me down. I question those beliefs, but if you want to change them, hypnotic work is the fastest, most effective, and efficient way.
Tell me why.
Because we go right into the subconscious where the beliefs begin. We can pull those beliefs out through clearing techniques, and then we reprogram.
So it's like taking out the weed and then planting the seed you actually want in your garden.
Absolutely.
The garden of
Absolutely.
your mind.
Yes.
And if you're listening, wondering, what are they talking about? By the way, what Zoilita is bringing up is actually the work that I did personally. It all started back in 2000. So it's been 25 years when I began to question. I remember I went to the Landmark Forum way back when, and I began to question, what do I believe about, at that time, my romantic life?
Uh-huh.
And began to unearth all these limiting beliefs that, of course, I would not proceed to have a joyful future if I continued to believe that those things were true. And I had to face them. And that's what we're challenging everybody here who's listening to do, is to really have the courage and the compassion and to really see the potential that you have. That if you are able to overcome these limiting beliefs by facing them, but then as Olita said, it's not enough to know you have them. How do we transcend them? How do we transform them? And that's where we need professional support. That's why we're bringing this up to your attention. Is there anything else about the beliefs and the replacing the limiting ones with empowering ones?
So then it's very important to create words of power or affirmations that you say to yourself and combine them with a picture.
Is it because you're using the left brain, right brain? How's that working?
It creates whole brain learning. Create a picture of you having a successful experience, and you say to yourself, I can do it. I'm a great public speaker.
Some say, fake it till you make it. And lately we're like, no, we're not faking anything. Okay, just be authentic. And if you don't know something, just own up to it and go train and prepare and do it. For people who may come up with an affirmation and they say, Ginny, I don't believe it. Zoilita, I just don't believe that. I'm saying it, but I don't believe it. What would you say to them?
Use transitional language.
Such as, give me an example.
I'm in the process of becoming my ideal weight.
That is more believable, right? You could get behind that. I'm discovering my purpose. I'm discovering what I'm passionate about. What comes to mind when you say words of power, Zoilita, is I always tell my clients, words matter. When you use the words, I struggle with, oh, I'm challenged by, I always challenge my clients to say, what if we, instead of saying I struggle with, if you say I'm discovering, I'm exploring, that has less negative charge than I'm challenged or I struggle with, because I believe that you become what you believe. So therefore, if you're challenged and struggling, guess what? Everything that you do and say and experience is going to be a struggle and a challenge. Let's be very intentional with our words. And that ties into these words of power that you're referring to. For our audience, how many words of power are you using today in your vocabulary? Because that will translate into the reality you're creating for yourself and for your team. We also want to remind everyone who's listening about the responsibility we have as leaders. I had a conversation yesterday with one of my clients who said, I struggle with my self-confidence. And I said, how come? Like, what is it about your self-confidence? And she said, although I know I do good work, I only hear criticism from my manager. So he will never tell me when I do something well, only highlight the things I'm doing wrong. And so words of power not only impact us and our perception and our experiences, they also impact our teams. I want to highlight and ask you, how many words of power are you using with your team? How are you letting them know that you believe in them, that you trust them, that you can see how much they have grown? They need to hear that from us too. So I just want to put a little pause there because we have so much power as leaders, and sometimes we don't realize that our words are hurting others or building them up. So let's build them up if we can. So, Lita, what was the second aspect? We talked about limiting beliefs.
Habits of living. I recently read a study about people that work out at the gym and go to Starbucks afterwards. And the study talked about the fact that these people were complaining that they were not changing their bodies the way that they had an expectation of doing so because the gym habit was canceled by the Starbucks habit.
Yes. And how does that translate in terms of your clients and how you help them shift their daily habits?
First of all, we identify what are habits of success that would help you to achieve your goal. So if you had a goal of being a higher performer in a team that you were involved with, and you watch TV late at night, you skip breakfast in the morning, you were half awake during meetings, all of these things are not successful habits. So, first of all, we identify what habits are not successful. Then we do some inquiry through hypnotic techniques to find the part of the personality that's holding on to these habits.
Give me an example of something where someone was holding on to a habit that they knew was not good for them, but it was almost sometimes it could be like you being the rebel. Like it's just like you're not going to tell me what to do. Give me an example of one that the audience can relate to.
I have a very strong inner rebel. I grew up in the 60s in Berkeley, California, and I was very rebellious. I actually thought that by refusing to go to school, they would stop a war. I actually believed that in my late teens, okay? So that rebel part of my personality needs to get occupied because the work that I do in the world, I have a lot of self discipline. So I always give the rebel a cause to be working with
A
so
good,
that I can focus on the positive habits of self discipline.
yeah.
So, in an example of maybe one of our watchers of this program, let's imagine that this same gentleman who is not performing the way he would like on his team has this habit of staying up till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We identify that as a real unsuccessful habit because of the fact that it affects cognitive performance. Lack
Absolutely.
of sleep affects cognitive performance. So we have him do an exploration. Let's find the part of you that's staying up late. Turns out to be the 8-year-old who didn't want to go to bed.
At 45.
Yes, so we do inner dialogue.
Mm,
We have the adult take charge.
yes.
We find out the 8-year-old was never put to bed with love and nurture and stories.
Right.
We have the client develop a evening routine of winding down
Yes.
to get to bed earlier. We create positive statements. Early to bed, early
Yeah.
to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
What we're talking about makes sense. And yet, so many may be listening and saying, yeah, I know I'm supposed to eat well. Yeah, I'm not supposed to go to sleep and get my rest. Yes, I know that binging on social media isn't lowering my stress levels. I know all of these things, yet I don't do them. What would you say to them?
People are people are worn down by chronic stress. People are not hopeful like we want them to be. So we have to encourage people to develop a sense of inner sovereignty, inner leadership,
Yeah.
where they take charge and responsibility for their little corner of the world.
Yes.
And they do the very best they can. I'd like to share with you a paraphrase of a quote for a great teacher, Baba Ram Das. He was a spiritual teacher that came out of the 60s. And this is a paraphrase, but he said, whether you consider this the first day of Armageddon or the first day of the Golden Age, your work is still the same. To be the very best version of who you can be, to alleviate suffering where you can, and to just spread love and goodwill into the world.
And we can control all that.
Yes.
That's the difference. I think the stress that you're talking about is partially created, and I want to say fictitiously, by us trying to control things we can't. And I often share with my clients that there's two circles. One circle is the one of things that are important to me, things that matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
The other circle are things that I can control. And when I mush them together, the intersection of those two are things that matter to me that I can control. And if I focus on that, I won't feel the frustration. I won't feel that, my goodness, why am I paying attention to these meaningless things? And your life becomes, and your work becomes more meaningful. And I think we're saying very similar things, Zoilita, which is this beautiful quote highlights to me that self-leadership, how we choose to lead our lives, how we choose to think, believe, speak, behave, is under our control. And we can show up as the people we want to see in the world, but it has to start with us.
That is the great lesson. It has to begin with me.
Yes.
And when we live our lives from the inside out, when we don't take on the roles that society casts us in, but we live our lives authentically from our inside out, we break through and we find the brilliance that is in each and every one of us.
Yes, I was listening to a neuroscientist this morning talk about the collective illusion. How many of us believe that I think this way because most people, especially the loudest people, think this way, when in fact they did a study and they found that when it came to our beliefs, regardless of any type of background or political affiliations or anything like that, that we shared 8 out of the 10 things that people wanted from life.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going around acting as if I belong to this group and I need to believe these things, when in fact the private beliefs are very different from the assumed collective beliefs. So we're living an illusion, trying to fit a mold that is fictitious. And we are overriding our private beliefs, and we're quieting ourselves and we're keeping our voices down because, God forbid, we rock the boat. And so it's this instinctual survival mechanism that our brain just does this thing and says, hey, what you think is different from the norm, so do not speak. And it's creating a lot of stress as well because it creates a lot of dissonance. So let's dive into how you help your clients once you take them through this process. Or what are some of the outcomes that you see in them?
A real world example is I worked with a couple that were husband and wife and had a chiropractic practice. And they were intelligent, well-trained, competent, and always broke. As we began to work with each other, we discovered that both of them had limiting beliefs about money.
Of course.
They believed that people that were rich were not them, and that people that were rich were not really spiritual or completely good people. If you have those kind of attitudes about money, then the universe supports those attitudes. And every time they got ahead, their car broke down, or every time they got ahead, they were hit with a unknown tax bill.
Yeah.
So once we got in and changed their belief system and established some appropriate business habits, they became extremely successful.
And that's what I've also seen with my clients, that once you go through the process, and let's maybe help the audience who's listening. Some of them are already down this path of professional development, personal development. Others may be new to this space, and sometimes we need a little nudge, a little glimpse of hope that if I actually go down this path of, I call it peeling my onion,
Mhm.
understanding myself better, facing my fears, facing my shadows, my limitations, and changing my habits, that my life will improve. I will feel better about who I am. I will feel better about the person I'm becoming. And at the end, you and I both agree that we will be able to fulfill our potential. And what's wrong with that?
It's the most right thing there is. I think that we're called to excellence.
We
I
are.
think that we're called to what I like to call brilliance. I think about brilliance as being that incredible spark that can be in each and every person, that is their unique contribution to the pattern of humanity.
Yes.
And when we touch that, and when we line up our conscious and our subconscious mind, miraculous things can happen in our lives. And when miraculous things happen in our lives, there's a ripple effect, and it ripples out to all of the people that we touch.
I want
And
to,
that's how the world becomes better.
it is. And here's something I want to hang on to that you said that I want to highlight, which is alignment. Aligning who you are internally with how you show up externally. Aligning what matters to you, your values, with how you live your life, how you contribute at work, how you lead your teams, and paying close attention to the habits you perhaps have taken on because you may think that that's how you're supposed to be successful. If you had during your upbringing in the corporate world and at work, if you had this view that bosses were authoritative and that they yelled and that they had tantrums and that they belittle people and that's how they got respect and that's how people stay in line, and then you become a manager and you decide to follow that same pattern, you're not aligned with your values because that's not something you believe is right. However, you are executing on it as if it were because that's what you think a successful manager does.
Hmm.
So this is a conversation that, as we talked about alignment, is inviting you to question, how am I showing up in my work? How am I showing up in my personal life? How aligned am I between how I feel inside to how I show up externally? And if there's a misalignment, let's talk about that.
Such an important point to make. The ability to live authentically, the ability to be in truth. One of the words that I took out of my vocabulary was confrontation, because confrontation is about pushing energy at someone else.
Mm,
And I replaced it with the concept of being clear,
mm.
that when you are clear, excuse me, that doesn't work for me. That allows you to begin to have conscious conversations.
Confrontation has a negative charge.
Hmm.
Clarity doesn't.
Right.
As we wrap up our conversation, Zoilita, based on what we've shared today, what would you like to share that we haven't asked?
So, one of the things that I've discovered in working with people for 50 years, I turned 80 this year.
Amazing.
It was pretty extraordinary for me too, because I feel young and vital.
Yeah,
I am involved with Mark Hyman's functional medicine, and my biological age is 68. So I'm going to claim 68.
absolutely.
But one of the things that I've seen from working with people is people need a shortcut.
Mm,
If we only learn by trial and error, it's going to take a long time.
I agree.
And many, many people grew up in dysfunctional families, and so they don't really have a clue. So, one of the things that I designed was this incredible shortcut program called Breakthrough to Brilliance.
I'm so glad you brought it up.
I just launched it September 23rd of this year. It's very important for people to realize that what they're identifying as faults in their character are usually missing skills,
Mm.
the skills of self management, how to establish goals and really follow through, you know, to establish systems of self discipline, how to have hard conversations with people. All these are skills. And so I put together this amazing online course, which in 6 weeks, through videos, audios, and ebooks, can allow the individual to shortcut all of the trial and error learnings about how to be a successful human being, how to be a successful employee, how to be a successful entrepreneur, and allows that person to open up to their own brilliance.
And if you're skeptical, I would like to second what Zoilita is saying, that over the past 25 years, as I mentioned, I began my professional personal development journey in 2000. And I've taken so many courses and programs online, live, all of it. It requires that you be willing, meaning a choice, make a choice to believe and invest in yourself. And this is to me a phrase that I start as a mindset shift all of my classes. Because the first thing that willingness does is you have to have an open mind and an open heart. And if you are not living your ideal life, even though you may say, Ginny, there's no perfect. Of course, there's no perfect. There's alignment. If your life is not aligned to the vision you had or the vision you currently have, and you don't see any path in the future, any hope that it may even get close to it, what do you have to lose? And this is a resource that Zoilita is making available, and it's called Breakthrough to Brilliance. And tell us the best part about the program.
So the course is $495. It also includes membership on an online community, and it will be a community that I'll be doing monthly lives at. So for the people that are watching this, I'm going to give you a discount that's going to be available, where if you use a code capital U, capital M, 300, you can save $195.
Almost 40% of the entire course. I want to thank you for such a beautiful gift for our audience. And those of you who may feel ready that this is something that can benefit you or that you want to explore, go ahead and check it out. We're going to put it in the show notes so you can get to the link. And we want to thank you for being with us today. But before we leave, I want to ask Zoilita a couple of fun questions. If you had unlimited funds, time, resources, what project would you take on right now?
I would definitely take on the project of increasing people's consciousness. I would offer free classes. I would hire transformational coaches and teachers. I would use video materials to make short videos for TikTok to educate people on how you can make your life better.
Why is that important to you, Zoilita? Why is that meaningful to you?
We all rise when we all rise.
Yeah, a rising tide lifts all boats. I believe that. And lastly, what is the best piece of advice you can give us?
I learned it in my life. I've learned it in the life of thousands of people I've worked with. When you change your mind, you can change your life. Create by design, not by default.
And that it implies in itself that we have power. We have so much power. And I always use my mouse as this is our power, and we're giving it away.
Mm-hmm.
So keep this power and develop it, build it. It's already innate. All we have to do is believe it and then gain the tools to accelerate, gain the support to accelerate. And that's what we all do. So Lita, in your business, me at Executive Bound, our goal is to elevate consciousness. Our goal is to help you gain the access to the curated information that we already have from our own experiences in our lives and from practicing those tools and techniques and strategies and our clients' testimonials that say, this works. But it requires your willingness. And that's what we are here to invite you to open up your mind, open up your heart, know that there is more, not from a place of greediness, but from a place of abundance. So, Lita, what would be the last words you want to share with our audience today?
It's up to you. This is your movie. If you don't like the movie, change the movie.
Change it. Let's write a new script. Become the director of your movie, and then we'll help you shoot it. How's that? Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Zoilita, for sharing your wisdom. Happy belated birthday. And I know you have created such a beautiful wave of consciousness and love, and your work continues to ripple through the world. So thank you, Zoilita, for being
Thank
you.
you.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're always here. Can't wait to share the next episode with you. Until then, lead with purpose, live with joy. If you enjoyed today's content, I appreciate your review so others can find us, and share it with your friends. And to stay in touch, join our community to receive valuable strategies and expert advice at drginnybarrow.com. See you soon.